the Miami Dolphins are moving on from Mike McDaniel just a couple of days after there were reports that he was going to be safe. Not only that, but he was going to help pick the next GM of the Miami Dolphins. But now in the last couple of days, Kevin Stefanski has become available, and more importantly, John Harbaugh is available. Huge news, obviously. The Dolphins are now interviewing 4 different candidates for the GM. They're hoping to make a decision on that in the coming days. That should determine who the next head coach is going to be. But for Miami, really quickly, let's first and foremost start off with the elephant in the room. Is John Harbaugh going to coach the Miami Dolphins? Well, look, I think the Dolphins are foolish, and I think Stephen Ross is foolish if he fired Mike McDaniel just to try to hire John Harbaugh, right? Because let's not act like every other team that needs a head coach right now isn't trying to do that, or at least get him in the room. And John Harbaugh, the big reports were that he's going to wait until next week to even start interviewing. So this is basically Stephen Ross. If he's trying to hire John Harbaugh, he's rolling the dice here, because I got news for Stephen Ross. No offense. Your destination is not that attractive because, one, we don't know who the hell is playing quarterback next year, right? It feels like they're done with Tua Tagovailoa. Although, who knows? Maybe a new regime thinks they can rejuvenate him, they can save him. The other quarterback is Quinn Ewers, who played okay down the stretch, but a 7th-round rookie going into year 2. That's what that's going to attract John Harbaugh. And then the other thing is you're going to a division that has Josh Allen and the Bills, and maybe a budding Patriots dynasty part 2 with the potential MVP and the potential coach of the year. If the Dolphins think they're getting John Harbaugh, I got another thing coming for them. Your thoughts on that here as the news broke earlier today? Mike McDaniel out as Dolphins head coach.
Yeah, look, if I were to set the odds for Harbaugh to make the trip down the South Beach and sign on the dotted line, I would say like plus 700, maybe plus 1,000. I think it's a long shot. I really do. I think, again, I'm going to stick to my guns here. He's got to interview with the Giants next week. That's already out there and been reported with a number of teams as well. The Giants are going to put their best foot forward. They're going to, probably stack a whole bunch of greenbacks on the table in front of him, give him all the resources that he needs. And as you and I have said repeatedly, until we're blue in the face, and maybe the color mention is appropriate, you got Jackson Dart, you got Malik Neighbors, so you're going to get Cam Scatterbo back. You have the key pieces already in place in Jersey. Why the hell would you go down to Miami with the big potential vacancy at the quarterback position there in Tua Tagovailoa? Even if Tua were to stick around, I want anything to do with him because the guy's probably not going to win and suddenly turn the hands of time back and look like the quarterback he was like 2-3 years ago. So I think what this organization ultimately should do is just roll with Quinn Ewers in the short term. Maybe it's going to be a rough next season, get a high draft pick, and then spend it on the best quarterback prospect possible that would be available wherever your selection is. The saving grace for Miami, Devon Achane is an absolute beast. He was almost one of the most efficient on a per touch basis running backs in the NFL. Him and Bijan Robinson were like 1 and 2 yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles for. This guy's a stud. Catch a lot of balls out of the backfield, so slippery in space, and he's got just supreme wheels in the open field. You got Jalen Waddle there. There's some decent pieces, but quarterback is everything, man, as we all know in the NFL. So, Harbaugh may entertain it. I may go for an interview, but ultimately he's probably going to use that as a leverage point because, again, I am convinced he's going to wind up there in Jersey coaching the New York Giants. And I got to take as well, we're going to get to it, on where Mike McDaniel is likely going to land next.
Yeah, and that's a big part of this as well. And by the way, you look at the Dolphins in the draft here, their first pick is at number 11. Now, of course, whoever the new GM is, and one of those candidates, by the way, is Chad Alexander, who was a long time in Baltimore. He's the Chargers assistant GM right now. Obviously, very deep ties to John Harbaugh, so people are trying to put 2 and 2 together. All right, they hired Chad Alexander to be the GM. John Harbaugh comes there. That all makes sense on paper. Again, John Harbaugh, in theory, I would think he can pick anywhere he wants to go. Again, why would he pick Miami? It's not an attractive destination. You think he wants Tua Tagovailoa to be his quarterback? And Like, you think he wants Quinn Ewers? So you could say, all right, well, John Harbaugh goes there if the promise is made to him that, they're going to make a big splash. And there's not a big splash to be made in the quarterback free agency market. Like, there's just not. You want to talk about all of a sudden now, Chad Alexander, John Harbaugh, they're going to come into Miami and all of a sudden they're going to pull off a massive trade for somebody? Unlikely. Very unlikely. Right? I mean, there's just too many pieces that have to be put together that I don't think Stephen Ross, as as much as you want to make fun of him for some shortcomings and what he's done in charge of the Miami Dolphins here, the dude's got he's worth $20 billion. He's got all the money in the world to spend. I just don't think that John Harbaugh is like, yeah, sure, I'll take $15 million a year of Stephen Ross's money without a legitimate chance to win and most likely still be the third best team in that division. I just don't see it happening. But again, we'll take your phone calls here on if you think John Harbaugh to the Dolphins is a legitimate theory. If you think there's a legitimate chance, the number to join is 310-840-4910. Again, 310-840-4910. After John Harbaugh, of course, Stefanski is another viable option, but he, kind of seems to be number 2 on that pecking order in terms of the attractive free agent head coaches. 2-time coach of the year. I don't really see much sense as to why he would go to Miami either. The Miami Dolphins job, in my opinion, it feels like it's one of the next up-and-coming coordinators, right? And I've said over and over again, I think Clint Kubiak, he's my favorite head coach, next head coach of this coaching cycle. I think he's going to be the next Ben Johnson. I think he's an offensive genius that is going to have success almost no matter where he goes. But I think that, he's an option for Miami. I think any of the great defensive coordinators that haven't been a head coach yet, Jeff Hafley, Chris Shula, Jesse Minter, I think something like that is how I ultimately think this Dolphins head coach and this opening goes. But we'll see. I mean, the Dolphins, it was a couple of days. Schefter reporting that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross met with McDaniel this week to discuss the season. And after that meeting and reflection, Ross decided to move on. Again, they've been interviewing GMs here over the last couple of days as well. So maybe they do have their eyes set on the GM, or maybe every GM they've interviewed basically said, yeah, hey, look, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the head coach here. And then we get reports, of course, that, from within the building, McDaniel has been loved. And we know the Dolphins could have bottomed out here these last 2 years, and they didn't. They finished the season with some pride. They finished the year this season playing tough, which I honestly did not expect. I thought this thing, after they lose to the Colts in week 1, remember, they got destroyed. I thought this thing was going to get ugly fast. So kudos to Mike McDaniel. And I think you and I, when we look at what his next step is, we both think it's an offensive coordinator, right? I don't think he's going to get another head coaching job, but I think you look at the offense that he designed, and again, it's from that Shanahan-Kubiak tree, West Coast offense, heavy play action, heavy outside zone run scheme, drop back passer that can throw the ball over the middle. I think he is about as appealing as now an offensive coordinator can be here on this free agent market. I want to get your thoughts first on where you think the next location is for Mike McDaniel, because I think he's going to be an offensive coordinator as well.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be an OC, and he's going to be coveted. And I think he's going to be a damn good one. I mean, the guy is a phenomenal play caller and architect of offenses, as you laid out with that West Coast schematic. He's an ideal fit in Washington, has all the connective tissue there. Obviously, it's been very public, his struggles with alcoholism earlier on in his coaching career when he was in Atlanta. And Dan Quinn really steered him in the right direction, got him sober, got him right. He is consider Dan Quinn a very close friend and a mentor, and that trust and that bond is well established. So it makes a ton of sense that Cliff Kingsbury, bye-bye. He exits stage left and no longer with the Commanders organization. And maybe this was already in play. I think McDaniel slides right in, could do wonders with Daniels at quarterback, a proven guy. Obviously, a supreme dual threat with the arm and the legs. I think it really maximized his overall potential. I like a lot of the offensive pieces in Washington. They got a lot of issues on defense. That's going to be their investment in the NFL draft and in free agency as well. But, man, that offense, if all the parts are healthy over most of next season, it could be humming and they could again get back to making a deep run in the NFC. So if I'm setting the odds and I'm pulling this straight from the keister, folks, I would say right now it's like minus 500. Mike McDaniel lands as OC of the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's definitely one of the main places that I think he could go to, but I disagree. I think he's going to be the next offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was that was the big news of the morning before we found out Mike McDaniel got fired. The Buccaneers moving on not only from first-year offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, not like Liam Cohen, who was 1 year the coordinator, he then gets the Jaguars head coaching job, not like Dave Canales, who was 1 year the coordinator there and then gets the Panthers job. Both those teams in the playoffs. That seemed like the launching pad to be a next head coach, and Josh Grizzard kind of fell flat on his face. The Buccaneers offense not the same in the second half of the season. Baker Mayfield obviously plays a huge factor into that. He didn't play well enough. Mike Evans was hurt for a lot of the season. Kind of feel a little unfortunate. Kind of feel a little bad for Josh Grizzard. Maybe didn't get a completely fair shake, but also they struggled to run the ball for most of the season as well. Not only Josh Grizzard is out, but special teams. McGahee is out in Tampa Bay. The defensive back coach, the defensive line coach. Todd Bowles is safe in Tampa Bay, and he is basically turning over the entire staff. And I think the first thing that he should do is call up Mike McDaniel. Now, him and Todd Bowles have not worked together before, but I think that is an offense that could be a match made in heaven for Mike McDaniel. Baker Mayfield, drop back pocket passer, can get rid of the ball quickly. Bucky Irving, outside zone run scheme, I think that he would flourish. And then you look at the receivers. Now, right now, the main two targets, right? Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, future first ballot Hall of Famer Mike Evans. He's a free agent this year. A lot of folks in Tampa Bay want to bring him back. He may or may not retire. I think it would be obviously a great idea to bring Mike Evans back for one more season. If he wants to come back, he could be a mentor, obviously can still compete for an NFC South divisional title, and he's still a nightmare matchup when he's at his best. Unfortunate that he was hurt for most of this season. He's not the future of this offense. The future of this offense is Emeka Egbuka. It's Jalen McMillan, who also spent most of the year hurt, but had a great rookie season last year. And then I'm even looking at guys like Tez Johnson, the 7th-round rookie from Oregon, and their special teams guy, Cameron Johnson, who filled in and had a couple of nice games when Evans and Godwin were both hurt. I think Cameron Johnson could be a gadget guy for this offense. Tez Johnson, look, like shades of Jalen Waddle over this, not as talented as Jalen Waddle for sure, but all those young stud receivers that run pretty damn good 40s and are pretty fast. I think those guys, all the pre-snap motions that Mike McDaniel can cook up, like give him his Versace glasses, give him his capris, give him his vape that he can rip on the sideline. He doesn't have to be the head coach. He just has to call the offense and call the plays. And he gets to stay in the state of Florida in a division where if you've got a pretty damn good offense, you're most likely going to the playoffs. I think that's a match made in heaven. Mike McDaniel and Baker Mayfield, he spoke very highly of Baker before the season when they had some joint practices. He spoke very highly of Baker Mayfield again a couple of weeks ago when the Bucs played the Dolphins. I think Mike McDaniel and that Bucs offense would cook. They would be electric. They would win the NFC South if Mike McDaniel is the next offense coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's where I predict his next stop is. I can see Washington, though, right? The personal ties with Dan Quinn certainly can't ignore. And then we look at other jobs that are not open right now, but absolutely could be. Everybody in Philly wants Kevin Patullo fired. And think about Mike McDaniel potentially running that offense with Jalen Hurts and Saquon. That is sexy. That's a sexy thought. I don't know if it would mesh well. Detroit, obviously, the Lions need an offensive coordinator. They just moved on from John Morton. And then you've got maybe the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator job opening if Joe Brady leaves for a head coaching job. And that entire coaching staff could be open if Sean McDermott gets fired if they lose to Jacksonville. But I think McDaniel's going to Tampa. You think he's going to Washington. We want to hear from you at 310-840-4910. 310-840-4910. Who you think the Dolphins' next head coach should be or will be, and where you think Mike McDaniel is going to end up. Let's take a phone call here right out of the gate if we can. Kevin is in Baltimore. Kevin on line 1. You're first up here on BetMGM tonight. Brad Evans, Pat Boyle, Westwood One Sports. What's going on, Kevin?
Kevin
going once.
Kevin. Bueller.
Kevin going twice. All right, let's see. Maybe we can get Kevin on hold. This is our first week of opening up the phone lines, and the first couple of days here, callers have been blowing these lines up. Now, we haven't gone to any callers in the opening segment, so we have a very robust operation. Just to peel back the curtain, we've got the folks at Westwood in California that take the calls. They relay them to our producer Brandon in Chicago. He relays them to us. So maybe just a little bit of a false start there, but we are going to get rocking with these phone calls here as soon as we possibly can. But get aboard. 310-840-4910 is the phone number to join the show. And I expect a lot of folks from South Beach to weigh in here. Really quickly, Brad, let's just say that our predictions are wrong. Let's say it's not Washington.
Yep.
Let's say it's not Tampa Bay. Where do you think maybe would be another logical spot for Mike McDaniel to go? Because I think you set the line minus 500. You think that he's going to Washington? I think the line that he's going to be an offensive coordinator in 2026, it's like minus 5,000. I think it's almost a guarantee. So if it's not Washington or Tampa Bay, where else do you see a logical spot for Mike McDaniel?
Well, a team that's already in contact reportedly today with him is Detroit. And, you look at Dan Campbell, he wants that massive upgrade to the OC position. Remember, he took over the play calling there about midseason. Didn't really go well for that organization down the stretch. But again, the pieces are there. You got your franchise quarterback in Jared Goff. You got the tour de force at running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. It sounded like they could be moving on from Dave Montgomery. Mandatory Montgomery, you jackals. And you look at the weapons offensively, Jamison Williams, Amon Ra, St. Brown. You're going to get Sam Laporta back off injury. I mean, that's a turnkey operation ready to win. So if McDaniel were to plug and play, my God, that offense could skyrocket all the way to damn Pluto.